Morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, good morning, good morning. I'm Allan Mallinson. I'm the senior, or rather the longest serving trustee still, and it falls to me again to moderate today's proceedings, which is really timekeeping, and I've already failed. We're starting 5 minutes late, but traffic and whatever. My goodness, have we done well this year? We have just avoided the national rail strike and the tube strike, which has bedeviled us in the past. It's the first time that we've, as many of you will know, we've had this conference in London since before the pandemic, and it's a great venue. It really is, and we have got representatives throughout the day. If you add them all up, over half our network is represented at the conference. So we're really pleased, and in fact the numbers I think are a record of any we've assembled. So welcome, and I hope you will get all from it that you've been expecting. Mandatory announcements, yes. Over each wing is an emergency exit. Telephones, please, to silent, and hearing aids can be switched to Tango for those who got the facility, but it's such a good sound system recently installed that I don't think that's really going to be necessary. And for those other half of the network who'll be viewing online all the proceedings when we put them up in a month or so's time, welcome to you as well, and I hope you will take away from it all you would wish for. Can I just draw your attention, if you've not already found it, to the conference folder, because in there are brief resumes of what the speakers are going to talk about and who they are, so I can cut down to the minimum the introductions to each, and also the conference feedback survey for you to fill in and hand in at the end of the day, if you would please, even using the pen provided by one of our sponsors, Trousdell. So thank you for coming, and I'm now going to hand over to someone who really does need no introduction, having been chairman for almost as long as I've been a trustee, Sir Philip Trousdell.
Allan, thanks a lot. Well, welcome to you all. All 151 people have booked in for this conference. I hope you're all here. In particular, I would like to thank those who help us, who've come here from organisations like the Heritage Lottery Fund, the Arts Council, and the Museum Association. Welcome to the Corps Colonels, who provides such a vital link between the Army, their corps, and their respective museums. Now, I had hoped to welcome the head of Army Heritage, Brigadier Nick Doyle, but he has had to cry off because he has been summoned to go and brief his minister. Sounds rather ominous. She was a captain in the Intelligence Corps, and given that their museum, the Incorps Museum, is on the move, she may have military museums, which are part of her portfolio, quite high on her list. Anyway, I sent her a long brief about what AMOT gets up to, just to make sure that she understands us. And welcome, of course, to all our speakers. Thank you for giving so generously of your time. Thank you, too, to our in-house team, Clorinda, Jen, and Hannah, all of whom are part-time, who have been the driving force behind creating this conference. And finally, and most importantly, may I pay a very sincere thanks to our generous sponsors, Holt's Military Banking, who in one way or another seem to have been part of my life since I first put on uniform. Good to see you again. Brunswick Storage Systems, Lister UK Limited, PLB Projects Limited, and I'm sure you're very familiar with the last one, Towergate Insurance, who insure so many museums. Thank you all for underpinning this gathering. Now, this annual conference is a chance for me to tell you what AMOT has been up to since we all last met. Perhaps most importantly, what we have been doing is listening to you, the military museums, which are, of course, the heart of our community. Last year, AMOT had a strategy conference. It was very important that the trustees wrestled with the question of what AMOT should do, and indeed what it was capable of doing. We discussed a range of issues, such as finance, governance, communications, all the things which you would expect as we looked to the future and made sure our house was in order. One result is that we decided to rebalance the skills on the trustee board. As a result, we now have expertise which covers the areas of finance, investments, museums and the arts, legal, military, marketing, fundraising, and digital asset management. We also have a good trustee representation across the nation, which is so important. If we are going to continue to represent you, we needed to know what your major issues were, the problems which exercised your chairman, your trustees, and of course, what kept the curators awake at night. Our first step was to analyze the hugely helpful comments which you left with us at the end of that conference in Birmingham last year. The result of the analysis of those forms helps shape the contents of today's conference, including getting rid of Allan's bell. I would urge you, please, to give the same feedback on the forms in your handout today. Even if you're leaving early to go and catch an early train, I'd be grateful if you could fill in as much as you could. Now, we held our annual strategy meeting last month. This examined how we could do what you wanted us to do and was based on all the engagements we'd had with you during the year. Our information came not just from the telephone calls and emails to the office, but from a number of other sources. We have visited a broad range of museums, both those behind the wire, such as the Small Arms collection at Warminster. If you haven't seen that, it is the most amazing collection of weapons. And the Royal Signals at Blandford, which, of course, being behind the wire, have particular problems with access. And we've also visited those in a state of change who are in temporary accommodation. One which stands out is the Royal Artillery at Lark Hill, who are temporarily housed in the oldest aircraft hangars in Europe. And they're making a very good fist of it too. And we visited many others. Now, Jen has attended, either online or in person, most of the regional network meetings. And these meetings, you might recall, we set up as a result of the Arts Council-funded Scoping the Army Museums study, which AMOT sponsored. Much of that study is still very pertinent, and the comments from the regional meetings certainly are pertinent. Jen has also set up the AMOT coffee mornings, 8 so far, with I think about over 200 people taking a coffee break. Now, these have been a huge success because of the caliber and relevance of the speakers, and because it allows us another channel of communication with you all. That communication is so important. Now, if you haven't logged into a coffee morning, then I would urge you to do so. They are free, but you have to pre-book, and they are excellent value. There are 2 more this year, one in November and one in December. Please join us for a cuppa. One major activity this year for AMOT has been our survey of all our members. This has been an extraordinary effort by Jen and by the 77 museums who dedicated so much time to completing the questionnaire. The answers are very revealing and give AMOT so much data and information when it comes to making our case on a wide range of subjects on your behalf. We will launch the survey once we've done the deep analysis of it, but it has for the first time given me real data which I can take to the Army Heritage Committee and say, this is what these museums do for you, the Army. and you need to take better care of them. The survey is on the agenda later this morning, so I'll say no more except to say thank you once again for all the people who took part. So we've listened a lot to you, and we've heard from you, along with your feedback from last year, and what we have heard from you, along with your feedback from last year, has been fundamental in shaping this conference today. Well, what else have we been up to? The digitization program, Tom, is finally on the last lap. We have hit so many false crests in the last 18 months that I feel that I'm tempting fate by saying that. As long as we don't suffer from another unavoidable and inexplicable delay from our IT provider, which required a whole new team to be selected and briefed into the task, then we hope to finish the whole business in the next month or two. The end goal of a digitized collection, free of charge, viewable and searchable by you and the public for 90 museums, has always made the struggle seem worthwhile, even in our darkest hours. Now, Clorinda Snowball will be in contact with each museum when your digitized archive is ready, and she will be at the AMOT table at lunch, ready to discuss any of your details. The VC collection. When we heard that the Imperial War Museum had decided to expel Lord Ashcroft's collection of VCs, we swiftly made contact with him to see if the medal collections could be housed somehow across all our museums. We received a warm thank you, but the legal and emotional struggle is far from resolved, so we will see what happens. And there was an article in the Daily Telegraph this week which was really critical of the Imperial War Museum and what they were up to. Celia and I attended the Army Heritage Committee, which is chaired by the Deputy Head of the Army, the DCGS, last autumn. At the last conference in Birmingham, I vowed that I would try once more to sort out the perennial problem of Army kit, modern kit for museums. I tabled it at the committee, and there was considerable discussion, which ranged from Army Finance saying, we didn't spend money on that for museums, to other colonels of regiments on the committee saying, you mean they can't get modern equipment? Complete lack of understanding. Anyway, DCGS, number 2 man in the Army, directed Brigadier Nick Doyle, head of Army Heritage, to address the problem. Colonel Bobby Friel, who is here today as a speaker, his staff colonel, picked up the cudgel, or more accurately, was directed to pick up the cudgel. We had discussions with him and with Brigadier Nick and submitted a 6-page paper covering such concerns as the policy covering the difference between lending and gifting to a museum. Brigadier Nick had discussions with us, and it was agreed that for various MOD accounting requirements, the NAM, the National Army Museum, should be the conduit for the equipment. And they have worked really hard to make this work. I hope that you've seen Julian's various letters on the subject and that you are benefiting from this huge step forward. Now, Julian is here today, so please do raise any problems with him. The Bourne May review was also discussed at that meeting. We have, of course, also had an input into the subsequent work which Army Heritage Branch tasked the National Army Museum to undertake into a review of the GIA 2030 museums. The NAM has produced a paper for the Army Heritage Board and for DCGS, which is still in circulation, so I can give you no news on it, except it's a very hot topic. Finally, on a very happy note, I would like to mention this year's grant awards, AMOT grants. We have been able to persuade our finance committee to be more generous than they had originally intended, and consequently I'm delighted to say that 12 museums have been awarded grants for their projects this year. And so on that happy note, I will say once more, welcome, congratulations to the grant, and please keep us informed of what you're doing, because without that information, we can't go into bat on your behalf. So, on with the show, Allan.